The story you are about to hear is true and is intended only for informational purposes. Some of the names, locations, and other details have been changed or omitted in efforts to protect the innocent. Today's story is about Philadelphia convicted murderer Cole Herring of West Philadelphia. According to court documents on November 29, 2017, Cole Herring, also known as Cole Swearinger Herring, was arrested and charged in connection with the November 27, 2017 stabbing death of a 15-year-old girl from Wilmington, Delaware, whose body was ultimately discovered under a pile of leaves behind the apartment building where 24-year-old Cole Herring lived with his family. The Philadelphia Police Department became involved in this case when Mr. Herring's parents came to the police station on the morning of November 28, 2017, to report that Mr. Herring had committed the murder of a young girl. Mr. Herring's father told police that on the previous evening after midnight, when he returned to his apartment after watching a televised football game with friends, his son Mr. Herring confessed to him that he had killed a girl. Mr. Herring showed his father the victim's body, which was laying right outside of Mr. Herring's bedroom on the fire escape. Mr. Herring told his father not to tell anyone or something else would happen to someone in their house. Mr. Herring's father indicated that his wife and other son were asleep in the house during their conversation. The following morning, Mr. Herring's father made up excuses to get his wife and other son out of the apartment. He further stated that he went directly to the police station, gave the officers keys to enter the apartment, and told them to hurry to get there before Mr. Herring left. Philadelphia police officers proceeded to Mr. Herring's apartment, where they observed blood on the landing of the fire escape when viewing it from the outside of the apartment building. The officers then entered the apartment with the assistance of the building superintendent. When the officers entered the apartment, they observed Mr. Herring sitting on the couch, covered up with a blanket. In searching for evidence of a crime on the fire escape which was accessible from Mr. Herring's bedroom, the officers noted a strong odor which they presumed was gasoline or lighter fluid. Officers also discovered a pool of blood on the fire escape and blood on the walls of Mr. Herring's bedroom. Officers then uncovered the victim's body under a pile of leaves near a dumpster behind Mr. Herring's apartment building. The officers also recovered a black leather jacket and a pair of women's underwear near the dumpster. When the officers arrested Mr. Herring and transported him to the police station, they discovered Mr. Herring had blood stains on his sweatpants and boxers. During a further search of the apartment, the officers recovered bloody scissors from a trash can, as well as a black Puma hoodie and a white t-shirt with blood stains in the laundry basket in a nearby bathroom. After an autopsy, the medical examiner determined that the victim sustained 77 stab wounds and had burns covering nearly 40% of her body. The investigating officers also recovered video surveillance footage that recorded Mr. Herring wearing a black Puma sweatshirt behind his apartment building, dragging the victim's body into a pile of leaves near a dumpster. On November 28, 2017, Philadelphia police detectives met with an acquaintance of Mr. Herring, who gave the officers a statement in which they indicated that on the late evening hours of November 27, 2017, Mr. Herring came to visit them at the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, where the acquaintance was being treated for an unrelated matter. The acquaintance indicated that Mr. Herring was frantic and confessed to them that he had fucked up by killing a girl he met on Facebook. They further explained that Mr. Herring had come to visit them on the same night that the victim had been murdered and had told them details about how he committed the murder by stabbing the victim multiple times. Also, how he set the victim's body on fire and disposed of the body in a pile of leaves. At trial, the acquaintance testified that they did not remember telling the detectives that Mr. Herring had confessed to the murder, but also claimed that they did not want to testify because they feared for their safety. Prosecutors presented video surveillance footage from the hospital emergency room taken on November 27, 2017 at approximately 11:30 p.m., showing the people conversing for about 20 minutes. The acquaintance admitted that they and Mr. Herring were the two individuals recorded in the video. Prosecutors also presented subpoenaed records from Facebook, demonstrating that Mr. Herring and the victim exchanged over 400 messages in the month before the victim's murder. In those messages, on the day before the victim's murder, Mr. Herring invited the victim to come to his apartment in Philadelphia and gave her directions on how to get there by bus. At trial, Mr. Herring's defense theory was that his father actually killed the victim and directed Mr. Herring to dispose of her body. When defense counsel cross-examined the father and suggested he was responsible for the victim's death, Mr. Herring's father adamantly denied this accusation and expressed outrage at defense counsel's suggestion that he killed the victim, who he referred to as a little girl. Mr. Herring's father stressed that he was not home that evening, as he was watching Monday Night Football at his friend's home. His father also admitted he had been released from prison on October 3, 2017 and was on probation at the time of the victim's murder. Mr. Herring felt that at trial he was not given the opportunity to introduce evidence which would have proven that his father had a violent past in order to cast doubt on his own guilt. Mr. Herring tried to introduce evidence that his father was convicted of aggravated assault in both 2002 and 2014 in efforts to support the defense theory that his father was in fact the person responsible for the victim's murder. The prosecution shared that in the 2014 case, Mr. Herring's father assaulted several police officers by punching them as they were attempting to take him into custody, and the 2002 conviction was because the father had shot at a 44-year-old man with a firearm. The judge felt that Mr. Herring's father's prior convictions didn't make it more probable that his father was the true perpetrator, due to the victim being a minor female who was lured to the home on social media, and that the manner in which the victim was killed and her corpse being abused, it did not fit the type of assault that the father was convicted of in the past. In response to the defense's theory that Mr. Herring's father was the perpetrator of the victim's murder, the Commonwealth called the father's friend to testify, and he confirmed that Mr. Herring was at his home the evening of November 27, 2017, watching a football game with him and other friends. The father's friend further testified that on that same night Mr. Herring had been calling his phone trying to reach his father, who did not have a cell phone. When Mr. Herring asked to speak to his father, the father's friend indicated that the father declined to speak with him because he was watching the football game. The friend further indicated that Mr. Herring would not tell him what was wrong, but Mr. Herring indicated that he got himself into something and was going to get out of it. In conclusion, on November 17, 2020, the judge convicted Mr. Herring on the charges of murder, possession of an instrument of crime, abuse of a corpse, and unlawful restraint. Mr. Herring was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole in a Pennsylvania state correctional institution. The story you just heard was true and is intended only for informational purposes. Some of the names, locations, and other details have been changed or omitted in efforts to protect the innocent.